example 3, now we're talking about ellipses with not a center at 0, 0. Their center is at HK, and that should look familiar. We talked about parabolas with HK.
Yeah.
And so just like before, if it's in parentheses and you pull it out of parentheses to find H and K, you change the sign because it's
the
minus
super
H,
secret
minus K.
opposite society.
Right. So we're going to use this, and again, like the only difference between these is which is the bigger number. Is it under X or is it underneath Y?
Right.
So
same rules apply as what we did on the first slide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Find the standard form of the equation for the ellipse whose major axis has endpoints -2, -1, and 8, -1, and whose minor axis has length 8.
Okay, you first.
Well, I just remembered that I had forgotten that I remember. Okay, on example 2, just before this,
Yes.
it said check with your grapher. And so I just thought I'd throw out there that when you put it into your calculator, if it's 83 or 84, remember you have to solve for y.
Right.
And that moment when you square root, remember to plus or minus.
Yeah, it's got to be plus or minus.
And do not simplify those square roots because then you'll end up with something
No,
bad.
don't simplify the square roots. And you might have to change your window a little bit too on the 83 and 84 so that your ellipses actually connect.
Yes, yeah, you might have to mess with it some because a lot of times it won't connect them all the way.
And
Even though you know they should be connected.
They are connected. So if you turn into us an unconnected graph,
I mean, that's just silly.
well, we might have to require some sort of painful procedure.
Okay, so now example 3. What were you going to say about
Well, what I was going to
example
say is
3?
I already know what B is going to be.
Okay.
Well, it's half of the minor axis.
Half of the minor axis.
So it's going to be 4.
All right, so B is 4.
And now I have to pay attention here to figure out what A is. It tells me that the major axis has endpoints -2, 1, and 8, -1. The x coordinate changes here, which tells me that my ellipse is going to have the larger number under x.
Yes, because of what we've got going on right here.
Right.
So
if I do where I stop, which is 8, minus where I start, which is -2, and divide that in half, then that should give me the length of my major axis.
So A should be 5.
Yeah.
And that's because of the idea that, like, if you wanted to draw this, we've got over here at -2, -1, like, you know, we've got 1 vertices here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's way over
Yeah.
there.
So how long is that axis? Well, you'd actually add the two numbers together, ignoring negatives. So you get 10, and you divide it in half, and you get 5. So that's A and B, and that's really all we need H and K. And so this is where, since they gave us the vertices, our vertices are H plus or minus A comma K.
Right.
And so
the K part never changes.
K part,
so we know what that is.
Right. The K is -1. So H plus A has to equal one of those numbers, and H minus A has to equal the other one. So it's probably going to be this situation. So we know what A is. A is 5, and so we can just throw that in there and then solve, and then look at what that gives us. So subtract the 5 over and you get 3.
Yep.
Add the 5 over, you get 3.
Hey, you get 3 on both.
Which is good, because H can't be two different things.
Be really weird if one of those wasn't.
Right. So now we can set up our equation. X minus H squared plus Y minus K. So that's minus a negative.
Minus.
Underneath X is A, we said, because it's
A
the
squared,
bigger axis.
so 25.
Yes. Oh.
Man, good save.
And underneath Y is B squared, so that's 16, and it equals 1.
Bingo, bango, bongo.
Now, yeah, and if you're drawing this out, then which it doesn't ask us to, our center point is right here. We go left and right 5, up and down 4.
So it's almost a circle-y, but
It's
not
pretty
quite.
close. And then you just draw your ellipse.
You know, the
around.
planets tend to fall an elliptical course around the sun.
And you know what? I was actually told recently in a class that the sun is not at the center; it's at the foci.
You don't remember talking
I
about
don't
that
remember
last
talking
year
about that
when
last
we
year.
did?
No,
oh
I don't.
My goodness.
So yeah. Interestingly enough, the sun's not actually the center.
So if you had just paid attention in class last year, let me just help you out real quick. You just go ahead and start.
All right, so example 4. Find the center, vertices, and the foci of the ellipse. So let's start with the center, which is H comma K.
Notice that the sun is at a focus of the orbiting object.
Go figure.
Yeah. And perihelion is the closest point, and aphelion.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. The center is -2, which means we know h and k.
Maybe I did this lesson last year.
Maybe. So underneath x here, this is the smaller number, which means that b is 3. This is the bigger number, which means a is 7. So when we look at this, we're going to look at the second column because that's where a is bigger. And so our vertices, we take our center point and we're adding a to the k value and subtracting it. So -2, 5 plus or minus 7, but don't leave it
Don't
like
leave
that.
it like that because we can. Now, if that said plus or minus the square root of 7, no
That'd be
problem.
different.
But we can all of us do 5 plus 7 because we can just count on our fingers, and some of us just our toes.
Just our toes to get
Some
to
of us need
12?
all our yeah, you know. Why are you looking at me like that?
No reason.
Maybe I
the
have,
foci.
you
So
know.
we need c. So we do a squared minus b squared. And what may happen to you occasionally is you'll put this in and you'll get a negative that you have to take the square root of. That means you put them in the wrong
Right.
order. So that's 49 minus 9, which is 40.
So the square root of 40 then would be your c value, and that's the distance from the center to the focus.
Right. And so if I square root this and then simplify, that would give me 2 square roots of 10.
Wow.
Because
Simplified it. That's pretty good.
Because it's 4 times 10 and you
You're
can
right.
take the square root of 4.
Square root of 4 is 2.
Yeah, so foci. And this would be the case where we could just put plus or minus 2 square roots of 10 and leave it because now we don't have like terms.
Right. Right. We don't have things that we can put together. You're correct. So center, focus, and vertices. All right. Good job.